Seeding the Healed Future, we join together to pay honor to the legacy of Dr. King. We are looking forward to hearing from Rebecca Bennett, an esteemed community member, and we look forward to a musical performance from one of our very own SIUE students, Malik Good. I hope today's programming offers moments of reflection, challenge, and inspiration. I'm looking forward to the experience today, and I hope you are as well. I want to start with regrets from our SIU system president, Dr. Dan Mahoney. He wanted to be here with us today to offer welcoming remarks, but was unable to, and he wanted to let you know that while he can't be here at this time, he looks forward to future opportunities to be a part of programming such as this one. Thank you, President Mahoney, for that thought. And with those sentiments shared by President Mahoney, I would now like to introduce our Chancellor of Southern Illinois University, Edwardsville, Dr. Randy Pembroke, for opening remarks. Chancellor Pembroke became the 9th Chancellor at Southern Illinois University, Edwardsville on August 1st in 2016, and will soon be retiring from his role. He is an alum of the university, and in the last couple of years, Chancellor Pembroke has reaffirmed the campus's dedication to anti-racism, equity, and inclusion work by forming the Anti-Racism Task Force, hiring SIUE's inaugural Vice Chancellor for Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion, and supporting continued change on campus. That change allows for SIUE to move forward in creating more equitable spaces and opportunities for faculty, staff, and students on campus. He is a strong proponent of his work, and much like our theme, he recognizes the importance of committing to the work now so a healed future is possible. At this time, please join me in inviting Chancellor Pembroke to offer remarks.
Well, thank you, Haley. I appreciate those very kind words. And thank you for serving as MC today. You're doing a great job, so we appreciate that. I also want to say thank you to those who are on the call, who are participating today, and particularly to Vice President Sheila Caldwell, who is the Vice President for Anti-Racism, Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. It is great to have you here with us today as well. Thank you for representing the system. I appreciate everyone who's participating today, who is a part of this call. I just want to say I appreciate the efforts of everybody who put this together. It is an amazing thing to have a tradition of 39 years. So all of our staff members, all of our faculty members who helped create this event to continue its legacy, thank you so much. And Lindy, thank you to you and your team. I want to say that I have been a part of Martin Luther King celebrations for 6 years. This is my 6th one, so 6 out of 39. But I've also been a part of celebrations of Martin Luther King Day within our community. And particularly in the Metro East and the St. Louis area, I've been privileged to be able to be a part of so many of those celebrations. And one of the things that I have noticed is that the celebrations have different formats. Some of them focus on the history of Martin Luther King Jr. and what he did for our country and how he changed our country. Other events have served as events to call to action, to call on us to make a difference, to change our world. And then one of the things that I really enjoy about the ceremonies is that they're inspiring. And it seems like every one of the events that I've attended have had these very special moments. And I was telling Dr. Harris, who is our Vice Chancellor for Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion, that moment of inspiration has already happened for me this week. I know it will happen again this hour, but Monday night on Martin Luther King Day, we had a basketball game. And at halftime of the basketball game, people were sitting there, we get to halftime and people are talking and eating popcorn and doing whatever they're doing. And the video board came on and Martin Luther King delivering the I Have a Dream speech. It started. And the thing that was so inspiring to me, that was so special, was that the arena got quiet and everybody listened and they turned to the video board. And it was about a 5 or 6 minute excerpt from that speech. And it was so inspiring. It was so amazing to see what happened within that arena. So I just want to thank everybody who was there and was part of that. I'm excited today. I know that we'll hear many wonderful things. We'll be inspired in that way. I want to thank Rebecca Bennett for being with us today, and I look forward to remarks. Let me close by just saying that I think it takes courage It takes intentionality to change the world, to try to create a better future. And so thank you for everybody who is here today and who is making that commitment to make a difference and to be a part of change. I look forward to your ideas and talking more about that. I have a list on the side of my desk of quotes that Dr. King said that he authored. And so let me share one of them at this time. It's one of my favorites. And it says this: human progress comes through the tireless efforts and the persistent work of dedicated individuals. So I know we'll reflect on that. Thank you for being here. Thank you for considering that message. Thank you for reflecting, and most important, for getting involved. Get involved. Thank you for allowing me to speak today, and I look forward to hearing from everyone. Thank you, Haley.
Thank you, Chancellor. I know I'm also looking forward to our speakers today. And at this time, I have the honor of introducing Rebecca Bennett. Rebecca Bennett is founder and principal of Emerging Wisdom, LLC, and its subsidiary, Empower Institute. Launched in 2006, Emerging Wisdom is a forward-thinking social enterprise that helps individuals live empowered lives. Leaders build impactful organizations, and communities advance brighter futures. At Emerging Wisdom, Rebecca and her team conduct professional development programs, organizational improvement efforts, and multi-stakeholder transformation initiatives. Within these areas, they provide an array of offerings, including consulting, training, facilitation, planning, coaching, and professional speaking. In 2010, Rebecca opened Empower Institute, a division of Emerging Wisdom that serves as a center for community healing and optimal living. Through Empower, she has formed an alliance of healers, change agents, activists, educators, faith leaders, and wellness practitioners who co-create healing spaces that advance both personal well-being and community transformation. Annually, Empower offers hundreds of programs and events that spur human growth, creativity, and recovery from trauma. Participants are supported in unleashing their personal power to create extraordinary lives and a more just and vibrant world. In addition to her professional activities, Rebecca currently serves as immediate past co-chair of the board of Forward Through Ferguson, the successor organization of the Ferguson Commission, and as past chair of the board of Generate Health, formerly the St. Louis Maternal, Child, and Family Health Coalition. And Rebecca today will share her thoughts on seeding a healed future. Please join me in welcoming our speaker, Rebecca Bennett.
Good afternoon, everyone. If you would, just wave at me. Wave at me. Yes, wave at each other. I love to start by creating a sense of community among us. You are also waving at each other, obviously. So this is good. That way I don't feel like it's so impersonal. We have to make do, given the realities that we're currently experiencing, with distance, but it's always good to find ourselves in community. I want to thank the SIUE community members and members of the larger Edwardsville community who are joining us today. And I really want to start by saying I'm thrilled and delighted just to share this time with you at this annual Martin Luther King Jr. celebration. I want to extend my heartfelt thanks as I begin to members of the event planning team who invited me. And specifically, that would be Lindy Wagner, whose voice you heard at the very beginning of our program. For those of you who don't know, she's director of SIUE's Center for Student Diversity and Inclusion. And I also want to thank Malik Good, who you'll hear from later in this program, because he will be delighting us with his vocal performance. He is Equity and Inclusion Ambassador for the Hub and founder and president of the Association of Black Student Social Workers. Lastly, I think I want to reach out to Vice Chancellor, who I think is on this call, Dr. Jessica Harris, because she had me on her Segway radio show last week. So to all of these individuals, I say thank you, thank you, thank you for making it possible for me to be here. So today we are gathered to celebrate the life of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., which might give you the impression that I'll be delivering a retrospective. In fact, you heard the Chancellor just talk about how in some instances, previous speakers have really talked about the influence of Dr. King on success, on society, or perhaps chronicled his actions during the civil rights movement of the 1950s and 60s. And I just want to disabuse you of the notion that I'm going to be offering a retrospective. That's not going to happen. Not today, not this time. Not that it's not important, but it isn't the direction that I'm moving in. So I'm not going to do a litany of past events or situations. But I am going to focus on seeding the healed future as an invitation to co-create more equitable realities than any of us on the Zoom call will, quite frankly, ever live to see. Did you hear what I just said? We're going to be talking about seeding healed futures that we won't live to see. Now, it might appear that there's some apparent tension between sort of focusing on the past or focusing on the future, but I don't want you to concern yourselves with this, because in my estimation, Dr. King was not only the leading civil rights proponent of his time, but he was also a visionary futurist. A role most evident in his most lauded I Have a Dream speech, which the chancellor already referenced, right? This is a speech delivered nearly 60 years ago at the March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom. Additionally, the tension that might present itself between past and future, I think dissolves when we consider the Sankofa principle. Some of you might have in fact seen the Sankofa movie, right? Which really presents an understanding of Ghana's Akan people that says that it's important to learn from the past, to draw inspiration from the past in order to ensure a strong future, right? And so in that way, we'll be looking back occasionally while I speak in order to draw positive resource to help us in our work as ones who see the healed future. Now, I want to say a few words about the healed future as we begin. It's not some mythical utopia where the human experience is void of all problems and pain. I don't think that such a utopia has ever existed in the 200,000 years of human history, a recorded sort of human civilization as we understand it. And it's better to think about the healed future as a related reality in which the evolution of human consciousness and behavior has made possible that which today seems highly improbable or like a really, really big stretch. Are you still with me? Okay, now I'm going to be asking you for participation. I come from a call and response tradition, so just get comfortable, right? With this sort of more accessible definition, you could see how you and I are today living in a healed future of sorts, even with its 790,000 new COVID infections per day in the US, its perennial voting rights conflicts, its escalating animosities between the US and Russia over the fate of the Ukraine, its ongoing investigations into the January 6th insurrection, and on and on and on. For all of today's traumas, and there are indeed many, it still reflects advancements in human consciousness and conditions, the likes of which were only hoped for by many of our forebears. Surely, if we can understand ourselves as occupants of earlier humans' healed futures, as poet Maya Angelou once proclaimed, I am the dream and the hope of the slave. And indeed, as a Black woman business owner who lives in Edwardsville, I am, then we can also come to accept ourselves as progenitors of newly forming, yet invisible realities in which human and planetary conditions are radically transformed to support more just and vibrant life on Earth. Creating more just and vibrant life on our planet is not the work of a single lifetime. It is not the work of a single generation. I would posit that it is, in fact, the great work of our species. The great work of our species, a work that liberators, change agents, activists, scientists, healers, ministers, teachers, and interested humans of all ilk and stripes of every era and every society have chosen to commit themselves. This lineage of liberators dedicated to seeding healed futures includes, no surprise here, drum roll, Dr. King. Anybody shocked at this? Right? It includes Dr. King, who on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial in August of 1963 shared a glimpse of a healed future for America. Now, he does, in many of his writings, have much harsher critiques. And in fact, if you read that speech in its entirety, you will find a harsh critique of the day. But you will also find a glimpse of a healed future. And of course, he talks about this healed future as a dream, which won't be a surprise to any of you. I'm sure you all have been exposed to the elements of his dream. There are a few, however, that I think are useful to pull out for the purpose of our conversation today. Right? He talks about this dream being leading to a nation that would rise up to live out the true meaning of its creed. And how many of us know that creed in the document that he was citing? Just raise your hand, give me a thumbs up if you know what document he was citing, right? This, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. That was a declaration, by the way, that a group of English colonists put forth in 1776. We'll come back to that, so just hold that for a moment. He talked about a future where Black children would not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. He talked about a future where Georgia, Mississippi, Alabama, Pennsylvania, Colorado, New York, New Hampshire, California, and quite frankly, every hamlet and every city in America would be transformed into oases of freedom and justice. These were the works of Dr. King. Still today, Dr. King's dream provides a vivid description of a future dearly longed for, yet largely unmanifest. He doesn't have to be alive today to see the horrific treatment of undocumented children and families seeking refuge in the United States, to know that many of our leaders don't really believe that all men are created equal. He doesn't have to know the names of Trayvon Martin, Tamir Rice, Michael Brown, George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, to understand that judgments based on skin color are still both lethal and commonplace. He doesn't have to be engaged in the latest battle over the franchise to discern the persistent gap between our democratic principles and our democratic practices. Clearly, the wounds of King's generation remain stubbornly alive today. A fact that I don't think Dr. King would at all find surprising, even with nearly 60 years having passed. You'll recall that he began his speech by referencing the Emancipation Proclamation, because he's standing on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial, right? Which had happened almost when? Right? If he's given a speech in 1963, the Emancipation Proclamation, right? So 1863, and then the actual end of the Civil War, right? And advent of the 13th and 14th Amendments. So he's talking about, he turns back and looks at a time 100 years ago and says, we still have all this work to do, but this is where we're trying to go. And I'm saying to you that 60 years from then, from his speech, there's still all this work to do, right? So I don't think he'd be surprised that many of us are still in the trenches, that we're still struggling. We're still struggling with these oppressions. But while the oppressions remain stubbornly persistent, I think it's important to also say, so too do his dreams of a healed future. Even the cynical among us have not been able to completely reduce his vision to mere democratic propaganda or banal racial platitudes. There's still something evocative, deeply evocative, about the vision of the future that he cast. In light of the harsh realities of contemporary American life, Why does King's vision of the healed future persist? Why does it still seem relevant with the power to shape national discourse, fuel social movements, and inspire individual actions? I think this answer to this question is twofold. First, we've experienced some significant advancements towards King's imagined America. And these advancements have driven our many expectations that we can and must achieve his desired dream and more, right? Many of us are continuing that dream, expanding that dream, deepening that dream, adding layers of dimension and complexity to that dream, expanding that dream beyond the intersections of race and class to include all manner of other identities, right? Other identities and ways of being human in the world. So we've had some advancements, and these advancements have led us to want more, to work towards more. And we don't have to look further than this campus, quite honestly, for evidence of the fact that we're making advancements, right? We're going to see a new chancellor, which is not to denigrate the contributions of the current chancellor, quite all right. But we're going to see new African-American chancellor soon installed at SIUE. And we already have seen one that's taken the reins of leadership at SIU Carbondale. As was the case with their predecessors, the leadership of these individuals has the potential to be game-changing. Has the potential to be game-changing if they have the courage, the skillfulness, and the relationships needed to not only redress the living legacies of institutional racism that might be alive and well in processes, policies, right? Organizational culture or dynamics. But if they also have the skillfulness to build Martin Luther King's beloved community, right? Among their university's disparate constituencies. We won't always see things in the same ways. We won't always meet eye to eye, right? But can we still be an intentional community with one another in ways that enable our ability to not only advance opportunity for ourselves, fairness and equity for others, but also make possible something bigger than we could have imagined and or worked for by ourselves? Clearly, we are witnessing the dawning of a new day, the emergence of a healed future in the SIU system. We're in it right now. We can see movement happening. And this movement, many of you will agree, has been many years, if not decades, in the works. But it's now beginning to become even more evident to us. So we're witnessing the emergence of a healed future in this system. And something in us accepts as truth the insight first articulated by Reverend Theodore Parker, though it's commonly attributed to Dr. Martin Luther King, because he popularized it in a speech, How Long, Not Long. You all remember that speech? Where he says what? He says, the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends what? Toward justice. The arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice. Let me state that another way. The healed future is always on its way in a moral universe, no matter the detours and the collisions that populate the journey. The arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice. The second reason why Dr. King's vision, I believe, remains so compelling is because of the credibility and conviction of the messenger. Let me put it this way. I think we take for granted that Dr. King had this vision, right? And could articulate it in ways that were clear, concise, compelling, and shocked the heart of this nation in ways that made us go, oh, there's something really alive here that we want to be working towards. But I'd like you to consider for a moment that Dr. King, right, was a Black Baptist minister born in 1920s Georgia. This man was opposed by more than 75% of white Americans at his death. I mean, we talk about him in beloved ways, but he was not beloved while he lived. He was reviled. This man witnessed all manner of degradation, humiliation, and government-sanctioned violence, nothing new there, perpetuated upon Black people. This man was brutalized, and let's not forget, he didn't die, he was fatally shot for extolling the evils of racism, capitalism, and militarism. No doubt things that we still have conflicts around in our country today. Now, if this man could believe that a racially healed America was possible, then what? What? Why can't we? That's right. Thank you. Why can't we? I really did mean it that I come from a call and response tradition. So those pregnant pauses invite you to participate and to co-create with me, right? Then so too can we. Again, something deep, deep, deep down inside of us knows that oppression has never been a match for a fully creative human mind and a radical imagination. I'm going to say that again in case you missed the point that I'm making. Oppression has never been a match for a fully creative human mind and a radical imagination. Pick your society, pick your hardship, pick your era. There have always been people who have been able to see and imagine beyond their convictions or beyond their sight, beyond their conditions, and then organize their energies in ways to help make their imaginings possible. If not for themselves, for those who come behind them. So, the truth bears repeating. This truth about not being a match was something that Dr. King fully understood. But it wasn't just Dr. King that understood the power of a creative human mind to cast the web of a different future, of an alternative fate, not only for an individual, but for a nation state. I think it's important for a moment to turn our attention to other inspiring messengers of the healed future in the American pantheon. One could argue that this country's founding fathers were part of the lineage of futurists that Dr. King was a part of. Now, this is interesting, right? This is an interesting thing. You go, well, Rebecca, now wait. He had a critique. Indeed, he did. Indeed, he did. But just like I had you think about the conditions in which King was formed, and yet the future that he cast, I want you to think about these English colonists, right, who were raised in feudal societies, first established under William the Conqueror in the medieval times, right? These colonists who had the temerity to buck centuries of violently enforced convention, who believed that feudal hierarchies and economic castes should not forever bind them, and dared to imagine something that they'd never fully lived, and quite truthfully, would ultimately never fully practice. They imagined a nation state where it was self-evident that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, and that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. We might take that for granted today. But I want you to think about what an extraordinary act of radical imagination it was. What a bold proclamation from men whose social conditioning still had strong roots in the divine rights of kings. This public declaration, made in July of 1776, like Dr. King's dream of 1963, offers a vision of a healed future, one that succeeding generations of Americans, including Dr. King, as well as many others around the world, has sought to make fully manifest. Of course, it is not yet. It is in process. This is where we come in. The healed future is a constant companion, no matter the era in which it's articulated. This is because all movement toward liberation is rooted in radical imagination. We have a uniquely human ability to repeatedly envision possibilities that we've never lived in ways that catalyze our thinking, shape our choosing, mobilize our doing. This is how new realities are conceived. Though much more than imagination, you might argue, and I would agree, is needed to move these realities from the realm of infinite possibility to our species' lived experience or widely shared experience. But I want to just say to you that change has to start somewhere. And what better place than in the hearts and the minds of the stewards of the present, which specifically, though not exclusively, means you and me. We who live in these times are now progenitors of the future. And the question for us is, what types of futures are we seeding and weeding? To answer this question truthfully, I'd encourage you to do what folks in Alcoholics Anonymous call taking a fearless moral inventory. So, a look at your choices and actions in the present will reveal with startling clarity the kind of future you are sowing for your community. Now, notice where I invited you to turn your gaze. I didn't say, oh, go look out there and see what they're doing. It's not to say that what they are doing is unimportant, but it is to say that you don't have control over that. The locus of your control and influence is over your own actions and decisions. So this inventory of our choices and actions in the present gives us some sense of what we're seeding for the future. In fact, there's a saying that says, if you want to know the secrets of tomorrow, you can find them in the routines of today. So what am I doing again and 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 again that sets a course for human activity, that sets a course for human history? What are we doing? I'm only partly being rhetorical, by the way. I really do want you to think, what am I doing? What am I doing? Right? Here's a useful litmus test. If you have ever wondered what you do during a moment of historical crisis, you're doing it right now. Mm-hmm. Y'all hear what I said? I said, if you've ever wondered what you do during a moment of historical crisis, you are doing it right now. After all, we're in the midst of the worst public health crisis our nation has experienced in 100 years, and that our species has experienced in recent history. It's why I'm talking to you by way of Zoom and not in person. As a nation, we've had nearly 70 million cases of COVID since early 2020 and more than 854,000 deaths. Ugh! And these deaths have fallen disproportionately. Among whom? Latinx peoples, African Americans, Native Americans, because of what? Prevailing racial, economic, and political caste systems and structures. I mean, we can also widen our gaze because the public health woes that I've just talked about have precipitated acute economic hardship and fragility for tens of millions of families who are facing economic crises, the likes of which rival the Great Depression. I know that might be hard to believe when you see our new job hiring numbers as a nation, but we have to ask ourselves, who's in that? We can add to this deeply disturbing mix that we're still in the throes of one of our nation's most racialized political crises. Some would argue since the period of Reconstruction following the Civil War. And I'd be remiss to ignore the fact that all of our health, economic, and political hardships are happening within the context of a rapidly warming planet. Climate change is endangering every aspect of human life on Earth, from our food supply to changes in temperature and precipitation patterns to more severe storms and wildfires, right? Who wants to live in Colorado when 1,000 homes are burned overnight, right? To increases in pests and disease, reduced soil quality, and exponentially increasing human migration due to ecological instability. If we think these efforts to advance equity, diversity, and inclusion are just symbolic, we have missed the point. We're about to get real close up in here on this planet. These boundaries and borders that we so violently enforce are not going to be able to stand and withstand tidal waves of human migration in order to ensure human survival. And who will we be when our fellow humans show up at our doorsteps? Who will we be? In light of these ongoing crises, I again ask, how are you present, right? How are you present to this healed future? How are your actions with your families, your friends, your neighbors, your coworkers, your fellow community members making a better tomorrow possible? What futures are you seeding through your deeply held convictions and cumulative choices and actions? Well, clearly, I can't answer for you, right? I don't know you all that well, right? But I do want you to sit with this question as I offer up my own answer for your consideration. Through my personal, professional, and civic commitments over the last 25 years, I've been seeding a healed future where those most endangered in my community, and that is little Black boys and little Black girls, win. Admittedly, some of you might be shocked by my racial specificity and might even argue that my efforts would be best deployed by making sure that all children win in the future. And as a matter of principle, I'd agree with you. So we don't have to fight about this point. Yet I know that the best way to make sure that all children win is by ensuring that those who are most likely to lose, as evidenced by established patterns of racial disparity, have all the resources, opportunities, and advantages afforded to them that are made available to their more privileged counterparts. This is how we're going to get all children to win. So, that's right, an equity mindset, Dominic. Yes. So, let me tell you a little bit about the future I'm seeding as I wrap it up. In the future that I'm seeding, there are healthy brown babies carried to term with 40 weeks of gestation and uneventful births, though not unhappy ones, free of the complications that beset their parents and grandparents. Moms get stellar prenatal care, have generous health insurance, and have access to reliable transportation to and from doctors' visits, work, and home. Beloved communities of friends and family welcome moms and babies home to neighborhoods that are not just safe, but that are also thriving, where neighbors look out for each other, quality housing is affordable, and everyone is cared for absent poverty, hunger, and hate. In the healed future that I'm working towards, healthy Black babies grow into little boys and girls who can play outside without fear of threat and/or gun violence. And when danger does surface, they're community protectors, law enforcers, helpers on hand who make them feel safe and valued. These children are talked with, listened to, and read to daily. And by the time they're 3, they're enrolled in accredited child development centers, where every resource is expended to advance their extraordinary growth during their incredible years. When these babies transition to big kid school, they're not just readers, they're what? They're leaders. This is what I say to my babies all the time. They aren't profiled by well-meaning but deeply biased adults who misinterpret their abundance of energy as disciplinary matters that require adjudication. And their teachers are culturally competent and know how to instruct in ways that capture the imaginations, interest, and engagement of their students. They attend high-quality schools with rigorous and vigorous academic programs and are surrounded by adults who not only respect them, but who see it as their jobs to cultivate their intellectual, emotional, and social genius. These children are placed in enrichment programs rather than prison pipelines. They excel at school and are well prepared for success in post-secondary environments, like SIUE. They don't have to bankrupt their families or borrow against their futures to fund college or the acquisition of a trade. And the credentials they get, as well as the competencies they develop, not only provide them with good livings, but also endow them with the knowledge, skills, and dispositions needed to co-create healed futures for others. That's my vision. Wow, what a future. And for those who inhabit it, what a life. There's real power in calling things that be not yet as though they are now, which is what Dr. King was so good at. It's also powerful to center in our imaginings of the future, those who at present find themselves on the margins of our society and our polity. Now, I'd love for some of you to write me in the chat about some of the futures that you're sowing through your work, your volunteerism, or your activism. You just put a little note there in the chat. Look, I know that despite my best efforts, I won't live to see the future that I imagine fully manifest in my lifetime. Dr. King knew this too, which is why he proclaimed the night before he died at Mason Temple, right? He proclaimed that he'd been to the mountaintop, right? And that he looked over, but that he may not get there with us. He knew it was a long way in the distance. What he mercifully did not say is that many of us wouldn't get there either. Right? Not to the full fulfillment of the promise. But this reality that there was a gap between his sort of vision and manifestation of his vision did not stop him and should not stop us from doing our part to seed the healed future. Remember that the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice. For those of us who choose to continue Dr. King's liberation lineage, we do well to follow the example of the Haudenosaunee peoples of North America, who are also known as the Iroquois. Chief Eli Parker said, quote, "If you ask me what is the most important thing that I have learned about being Haudenosaunee, it's the idea that we are connected to a community, but a community that transcends time. We are connected to the first Indians who walked on this earth, the very first ones, however long ago that was. But we're also connected to those Indians who aren't even born yet, who are going to walk the earth. And our job in the middle is to bridge that gap. You take the inheritance from the past, you add to it your ideas and your thinking, and you bundle it up and shoot it to the future. For those of us who care about the welfare of the people, both in the present and in the futures to come, we are going to have to take the long view. We'll have to adopt from the Haudenosaunee their 7th generation philosophy, where we make our decisions today on behalf of the 7 generations coming. Where we make our decisions today on behalf of the 7 generations coming. Creating the futures that we want will take the compounded efforts of many across multiple lifetimes. This is true not only for humans, but also for nearly every aspect of nature, I mean, consider this. Every year, trees release thousands of seeds in efforts to secure the future of the forest. Consider our engaged and committed selves as the human equivalent of a tree seed. We are the seeds of our species. We are the seeds of our species. We are the best shots to aid humanity's evolution and our planet's continued well-being. We are the seeds of the healed future. And it's my sincere hope that the shoots and the roots that grow from us, that grow from our collective efforts to ensure brighter tomorrows, will leave a legacy that others also build upon, until such time as we find ourselves in King's Dream. Thank you so very much for your time today.
Thank you so much for your words, Rebecca. I see a lot of you are giving her claps or emoji claps. Go ahead and celebrate that amazing speech that she just gave. I know I can speak for myself, and I'm sure a bunch of you, that we really have some things to continue thinking about. So thank you, Rebecca. During our MLK celebration activities, we wanted to have a community service component, but because of our current situation with COVID-19, it has been particularly challenging to create an experience for you all that did justice to the work that Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. did. We will provide meaningful service opportunities at future events like this, but today we would like to offer you a moment of reflection as we share a musical performance by Malik Good. Malik is a junior in the Bachelor of Social Work program here at SIUE, and he served as an Equity and Inclusion Ambassador for the Hub, and now serves in the Vice Chancellor for Student Affairs Office as a Student Office Assistant for Compliance. Additionally, Malik is the president of the SIUE Association of Black Student Social Workers, and his musical performance overlays a video created by Chinedu Obwekwe. Chinedu is a graduate student within the Department of Media Studies and is currently in his first semester here at SIUE. He is a marketing and social media graduate assistant for the Inclusive Excellence Education and Development Hub. He is from Nigeria and has a background in broadcast media as well as film and video production. He has also worked as a travel operator. And this video wouldn't have been made possible without the help of Howard Ash, our university photographer, who shared with us photos taken from the last decade of the Martin Luther King Jr. luncheons. So thank you, Howard. At this time, we share with you the musical selection of Lift Every Voice and Sing, performed by Malik Good, and accompanying video by Chinedu Obwekwe.
Built in the day. up by the side. We have come over a way that with tears has been watered. We have come treading our path to the blood of the slaughtered. Out from the gloomy past till now we stand at last, where the white gleam of our bright star is cast. God of our weary years, God of our silent tears, Thou who hast brought us thus far on the way, Thou who hast by thy might led us into the light, keep us forever in the path we pray. Lest our feet stray from the places of God where we met thee, lest our hearts, drunk with the wine of the world, we forget thee. Shall beneath thy hand, may we forever stand true to our God, true to our native land.
Thank you, Malik, for that performance for us today. And thank you, Chinedu, for the video. Give them some claps as well. That was beautiful. We appreciate you for sharing your talents with us. And I will now ask our SIUE System Vice President for Anti-Racism, Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, and Chief Diversity Officer, Dr. Sheila Caldwell, to offer closing remarks. Dr. Sheila Caldwell joined the system in July of 2021, and she has served in multiple leadership roles over the past 25 years to cultivate inclusive excellence on college campuses. Her aim is to ensure all students, faculty, and staff members can bring their full authentic selves to SIU and achieve their full potential. She has already begun the work of bringing our campuses together in our anti-racism and DEI efforts, and we have very much enjoyed her presence in our system. At this time, please join me in inviting Vice President Caldwell to share closing remarks.
Thank you so much, Haley. And I especially want to thank Ms. Rebecca Bennett, not just for focusing on the past and the future, but really sharing your robust vision for a healed future. And really what stood out to me was seeding a healed future is seeding a just future, because justice is diverting our attention and dedicating our resources to our most vulnerable populations. So I just wanted to start out by saying that. And also, as I was thinking about your comments, I was thinking about how much time we have spent our lives hoping and dreaming, very much like Dr. Martin Luther King, for a healed future and a beloved community, and how much time we have spent working towards what we envision. I consider too what it takes to cultivate a healed future, to look around and to see what is possible and fight for it, to move beyond initial conversations of tolerance and push for justice and a restoration of balance among all people. The pursuit of equity requires consistent commitment to action. In my work, this journey has been arduous at times, with some on board and others who verbally express a support for change, but are unwilling to do the necessary work to be a catalyst for change. So I ask each of you, and I ask myself, to challenge what it means to imagine a healed future and do whatever it takes to get there. Don't be the passive observer, the self-proclaimed ally, or the bold obstructionist. If we want a more fair and just society, it will require all of us learning and challenging ourselves to do better and not just focusing on our neighbor. It will also require each of us understanding our capacity and limitations. Sustainable and effective work is performed by people who practice self-care, meaning that they take time to nurture their physical and mental being. I ask that each of you engage with one another in ways to help you become the best versions of yourself. I leave you with thoughts of loving yourself and loving others for a healed future. I was truly impacted by the words of Ms. Rebecca Stewart, and I hope you all continue to reflect on her powerful lived experiences and let her truth inspire me and inspire you to do better in our everyday actions. So if I can ask the group to give her one more round of applause for her impeccable and timely words. Thank you so much. And I want to thank each of you today for being here today and for allowing me the opportunity to share my thoughts. Thank you.
That's a round of applause for Dr. Caldwell as well. Thank you for sharing your thoughts. I'll give you guys a second. Okay. At this time, I want to share a few reminders. This is part one of a two-part MLK celebration. We selected to have our award ceremony at a later date, so we do hope that you will join us on Friday, January 28th at 4 p.m. via Zoom to celebrate our Martin Luther King Jr. SIUE Student Scholarship Award and our Martin Luther King Jr. Youth Contest Award. We have dropped that link in the chat here. I think, yep, there it is. And so you can click that to register. Our Martin Luther King Jr. SIUE Student Scholarship is made possible by campus and community members who regularly support the scholarship with their donations. Those of you who have donated in the past, you will get to see those donations granted to an amazing student next Friday at the award ceremony. And we thank you for those donations. If you have thought about donating in the past and were unsure how, the link to the Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Student Scholarship Award donation page through the SIUE Foundation is being dropped in the chat now. We look forward to the continued support of SIUE students' academic journeys made possible by your generous donations. So thank you for those. Additionally, I want to share a few save the dates for upcoming Hub programs. So pull out your planners. The spring welcome reception and open house for the Hub will be held virtually on Monday, January 24th from 4 p.m. to 5:30 p.m. That is this upcoming Monday. This will be a virtual drop-in and visit type program, which is a change from the originally advertised in-person drop-in. So feel free to log into Zoom at any time and connect with one another. The Zoom link for the event is being dropped in the chat now. Additionally, the Hub's Black History Month programming begins in February. The theme for the month is Black Excellence in Action, and the opening ceremony will take place on February 1st at 4 p.m. Thank you all on the committee who have planned a month of outstanding programs to attend. We hope to see many of you at those events. And the link for the opening ceremony Zoom is being dropped in the chat now. During March, we will celebrate Women's History Month, and in April, we will celebrate Diversity Month, as well as Arab American Heritage Month, Jewish American Heritage Month, and Asian Pacific Islander and Desi American Heritage Month. So be on the lookout for additional information as those months approach. And thank you again for taking time to attend today's program. And thank you again to Dr. Pembroke and Vice President Caldwell for being with us today. Thank you, Malik, for sharing your gifts and talents. And thank you, Rebecca, for encouraging us to consider what seeding the healed future really looks like and means for each of us. I know we were all moved by that. I hope we all continue to reflect on these thoughts in the days, weeks, and months to come. Thank you for joining us and have a wonderful rest of your day.
thank you all. We've stopped the streaming. I just want to personally say thank you, Rebecca. And if anyone wants to unmute and give a real like clap, I just would support that if you're still here.
That was amazing.
Because I feel inspired. And I am so grateful for Malik and Chinadu and Howard's video as well. So thank you all. We'll be signing off now. And again, hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you, Lindy, and the